Hello and welcome to another episode of Pittsburgh Sports Memories Current Events. It's Steve and Tim, as usual, your co-hosts. We're going to cover the events of June, even though this is posted in July, and Tim insists on calling it our July episode. We're really only covering June because I don't have that time machine to go into the future and see what happens in July.
Month ending June.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go. So guess what? Guess who's the quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers, Tim?
It's Aaron Rodgers.
Yay!
Yay.
Woohoo! We're going to the Super Bowl. Dynasty. 4 in a row. Yeah. Woohoo. Yeah, us.
The Pittsburgh Steelers.
So I am so tired of talking about this. Now we get the debate over, I guess, training camp. I guess we don't have to worry about Mason Rudolph. There won't be any quarterback controversy now. That he'll just start and hopefully he doesn't get hurt. And we'll preview the season in an upcoming episode. We'll see. I'm just glad it's over. Our short regional nightmare has ended, Tim.
It is kind of surreal. I mean, it is kind of surreal having this,
It's pretty obvious he didn't want to go to any of the optional stuff, and they didn't make him sign, so he wouldn't look bad until after that was all over.
Yeah. I mean, whatever. It'll definitely make this season way more interesting than it would have been with Mason Rudolph. So, or Justin Fields or anybody else. Like it'll be interesting if nothing else. We'll see how it plays out.
So that's enough about him until September, I guess. Thank God. Hot off the presses, Tim. Oh, stop the presses. Wee! The Japanese will. Oh, no, not that. Apparently, the Steelers have decided they're making insane trades. So they have traded Minkah Fitzpatrick for Jalen Ramsey and Jonnu Smith. Minkah Fitzpatrick is a 7-year pro, 20 career interceptions. 18 of those were with the Steelers. He's made the Pro Bowl 5 times. I think he just actually made it just last year. He always seemed to make big plays for the Steelers, especially at the end of the games. Like, I can't imagine how many of those interceptions are game clinching. There was a lot of them. Jalen Ramsey, he's been in the league. He's 30 years old, so he's on the downside of his career. 10-year career, 24 interceptions, 7-time Pro Bowler. He won a Super Bowl with the Rams, and probably the most interesting thing he did was he called Ben Roethlisberger a decent quarterback at best. And then when he played him the next year, Ben ate him for lunch in the fourth quarter, and he gave the game winner. So good for you. That guy's Jonnu Smith. Yeah, Jonnu Smith is. I don't know much about him. You were telling me about him before we started recording here, Tim. He's pretty good tight end in Miami. Let's see, he had 88 receptions. Ooh, that is pretty good.
Yeah.
But that was his best year by far, and he's been in the league since 2017. So that's an 8-year career. So I don't understand the point of this trade. It seems kind of dumb to me. I think Jalen Ramsey is washed, quite honestly, and you're not getting much value there, and you're losing Minkah Fitzpatrick. Why? I mean, I don't understand that because he still at least has a couple. I know he didn't have a lot of interceptions last year. I think last year he had one, but in the year before he didn't have any. But I still think he's a good player. I think he's a better player than Jalen Ramsey at this point in his career. I was reading that maybe they're going to move Ramsey to safety, but that's still, I don't understand how this fixes anything. I know, Tim, you were thinking that this tight end was a big part of it, but a tight end? The Steelers don't use tight ends anyway.
Yeah, but Arthur Smith wants to. Like
But that doesn't make any. Why would you trade Minkah Fitzpatrick for a tight end? That's dumb.
But they didn't. So like you said, is Minkah at this point in his career better than Jalen Ramsey? I don't know. I think you could probably say yes.
Just because Ramsey's older and had a lot more injuries. He's had surgery on both his shoulders. His best year was that year that Rams went to the Super Bowl. Well, he had good years before that.
Too, yeah.
Yeah. But his best, he's mediocre. And I just think there's no upside to this. And they lost a very good player that's been very clutch for them. So I don't understand it. I mean, I don't think getting this tight end is going to solve any of their problems. They need a speed wide receiver, not another slow player on offense. I mean, he gives them another weapon. The problem is they don't have a speed guy or somebody to open up the field for, Deontay Johnson, love him or hate him, and dropped a lot of passes, but he opened up the field for George Pickens because he was such a good route runner. And that was the biggest problem with Kenny Pickett, wasn't going down the field enough. And once they put Mason in there and he started bombing it, you remember the last 3 weeks, they had a pretty good offense. And that was still the offensive line. I think it was still a work in progress. I think the offensive line is going to be decent this year. And they're going to be, I don't know. I don't see the point in this. I think this sets the defense back. Moves like this don't win you a Super Bowl. I've seen the Redskins do this. Whatever they're called, Commanders, whatever they're called now. But that was back when Danny Snyder owed them. Do you think that does this put them in the Super Bowl, Tim?
No, but I think a couple of things from the positive side. I think it makes them better on offense because they still need a wide receiver. They have
Freiermuth and that other ginormous guy. So now they have a third tight end.
The ginormous guy, he's not going to be the third tight end. He's going to be, again, he said 88 receptions last year. He's not going to be the third tight end.
No, I mean that Darnell Washington or whatever.
Yeah, but how good is Darnell Washington? Like, I know we all love that he's like a monstrous, gigantic guy.
Are they going to move him to tackle?
No, they'll just play a lot of 13. They'll play 13 formation. They did a lot of that last year. They were the second most in the league in playing 13 formation.
What do you mean, like three
tight ends, one receiver? Yeah,
okay.
And that's what Arthur Smith wants to do. Arthur Smith wants to run the ball. He wants to play those heavy sets. And when you have a guy like Aaron Rodgers, like Russ wasn't good.
And why did they get rid of Najee Harris? I don't know.
Because I think what they did, honestly, Steve, was they lost 5 games in a row last year. They haven't won a playoff game in 8 years. They weren't ready to burn everything to the ground, but they were ready to maybe set part of the house on fire. So I mean, they completely got rid of all their quarterbacks. They got rid of their starting running back. They got rid of their leading receiver. They got rid of their all-pro safety. So they did kind of burn down a little bit. And I think I don't know, like, what did they do? Would they ever win with Najee Harris or Minkah Fitzpatrick or Russ or any of the guys they had last year?
Well, you could say that for a long time since, Super Bowl 43 or whatever.
Well, but I mean, losing 5 games in a row to end the season and then getting destroyed.
But they've done that
in the
every
playoffs.
year for how many years now? And I think I think that shows the team's age, or there's something wrong with their conditioning, their strength and conditioning. So.
Maybe. I think that I still think it makes them better on offense to have Smith.
But it doesn't make them any younger. These two guys are just as old as anybody. And,
Yeah, but it makes them better for this year. I mean, Aaron Rodgers isn't going to play beyond this year. So
no, I mean, I don't understand how they think this is going to put them in the Super Bowl contender without a safety.
I think it makes them better than they were before the trade. They have another weapon on offense, and on defense.
I don't see how.
Minkah was bad. Minkah was bad last year, and a slot cornerback is a lot harder of a position to fill than a center field or free safety, which is what Minkah was playing.
I thought they were utilizing him not well.
I agree.
I'm not an expert enough on defense, but you don't just watching it on TV, you don't get to see a lot. I mean, I don't think he was that injured. I don't know. I just think they were using him different or asking him to do something.
I agree, but I mean, if you're not going to use him, if you're going to use him as a center fielder that lines up 20 yards off the line of scrimmage, that Juan Thornhill, the guy that they signed from Cleveland, can probably do that. Generally okay. They want to play more man coverage. Now they have like 3 starting cornerbacks.
I don't think this guy can.
He's a good slot corner. They're not going to ask him to play outside. They're going to ask him to play in the slot.
Well, then if they're asking him to be like the Deshae Townsend third guy in,
I think that's what they're doing.
Then he'll be fine at that role.
Well, because they have Slay and Porter, so they already had their outside.
Yeah, so then they'll be fine. Then I would just say, he'll probably be good at that role. He'll probably be one of the better slot corners because they were saying that. I saw that on ESPN. They were saying that like he was going to play slot corner. If they're going to do that, then that's probably okay, I guess. But I still think losing Fitzpatrick is a mistake. But I could be wrong. They must know something that I don't know. And I'm totally willing to admit that maybe they've seen him play. Maybe they think he's injured. Maybe they think he's topped out. I don't know. It's just weird. I've never heard him complain. Like, I've never heard him complain, or like, he doesn't seem like a bad guy, you know. And this Ramsey, I don't know. I don't like him much. He's a good player. He talks a lot and then, you know, gives up big plays. It's like, you know, make a big play once in a while. You know, I don't know. I think Fitzpatrick made more big plays than this guy, but they won a Super Bowl.
Not lately.
Not in the last 2 seasons.
And in the last 5 games of the year, the defense was so. Remember all that stuff about them not communicating, and the Christmas Day game with Kansas City, they had people just wide open, and yeah, he's the guy that was calling the plays back there. So I'm not saying it's all his fault or even largely his fault.
Maybe that's why they got rid of. I mean, like, again, I'm not a coach. I'm not an expert in such things. I don't get to watch the film, the all 22. So I'm not gonna.
Well, remember too, Steve. It's not like they just like traded him for like a 5th round draft pick.
No, they didn't trade him for a bag of peanuts. That's right. For sure.
So I don't know that they were like, well, we got to unload this guy. I think that they saw, because Ramsey and Smith, that wasn't. They were on the block. I don't know. Again, like, same thing I said about Rodgers. It makes the season more interesting to me.
That's like, for sure.
Running it back with Najee Harris and Russ and Minka and Pickens. Like, we already know the ceiling there. We know the ceiling. The ceiling is maybe we get to the playoffs, then we get boat raced out of the playoffs.
I just wish they would quit doing this stopgap stuff and just commit to a rebuild. And that's what's annoying me. It's like so like Band-Aid, and it's that
doesn't happen until you have a quarterback, though. Yeah. That doesn't happen until you have a quarterback, and they have decided that this is not the year to get the quarterback of the future. So they need a 1-year quarterback. Rodgers already basically said he's going to retire after this year. So if you're going to run it with Rodgers for 1 year, then you might as well put some more Band-Aids on that Band-Aid. I agree with you though. Like, I really like, we're going to talk later in this about the Penguins draft. I like that the Penguins are just like, okay, time to move forward. Let's draft a bunch of young guys. We know we're going to stink this year.
13 of them to be.
Yes, exactly. And you're right. It's like, I just want the Steelers to get there, but if we were going to have to wait this year for that anyway,
at least it'll be interesting.
At least it'll be interesting. Exactly.
Speaking of not very interesting, let's talk about the Pirates. Does Oneil Cruz care, Tim? Does he give a rat's rear end about baseball anymore? Do you care about baseball, Tim? Do you give a rat's rear end about the Pirates?
So sadly, I spent many years being totally apathetic about the Pirates, and it's just been the last couple of years where now I'm angry because now they actually have really, if you think about, what between Skeens and Jones and Keller and what's his name, the kid from the minors that they won't call up, they have like the Braves, like the 90s Braves pitching staff. Like, that's what they have, and they're going to just completely waste that away. And with players like Cruz, so Cruz, to your original question,
he let a ball roll to the, like, he's now playing center field because he couldn't play shortstop, and he misplays a grounder as he is wont to do, and the ball bounces off his glove and rolls to the fence. Instead of like, this guy's like super fast, he just kind of like, I'll just stroll back like I got nothing else to do. And then I guess finally the last straw for the new manager was he didn't run out a double play. He said, I thought there were 2 outs. Who cares? Run. He got benched after the second incident, and I guess I'll give Kelly is the guy's Don Kelly, or I don't know.
Yeah, Don. I'm not going to be a manager ever again after the season is his name, I think.
Yeah, he was like, well, I give him guess some credit. Like, I understand, like, give a player one time and maybe he corrects it, but the second time he pulled him out in the middle of the game. So that's different than Cherington, where Cherington never did anything to this guy. He just got away with everything. So maybe Cruz is better for it. Maybe not. Who cares? I think he has the most strikeouts in the major league right now at 103. I think I just heard that the other day. So
See, I have a lot of respect for Oneil Cruz because, you know, everybody else is just faking it that they don't care. But he's
Yes.
honest. He's
He
totally
j-
honest. He's like, "Hey, look, I play for a team where the owner doesn't care. So if he doesn't care, he's not going to invest anything in this.
Why
Why
should I?
why should I bother?" So good on him for, just being honest.
He's just here so he can collect a paycheck. And
Yeah.
good for
Well,
him.
I
Good
mean,
for him.
what's the point of going out there every night? I mean, I know you're getting paid and it's your job, so you're supposed to, but it's also supposed to, the whole point of that job is to have a competitive team in a competitive sport, and they have an owner that doesn't want that. So what's the point? Good on him for being honest.
He gets a point for honesty.
He doesn't
Well,
care.
why
Why should
should
we
I?
care?
Yeah, yeah. Oh goodness.
The guy that owns the team doesn't care. So again, why should we care?
I can't even argue at this point. I don't even know what to say. I mean,
Again, they're going to waste their best chance in year. They have a legitimate window to win something now with that pitching staff that they have, and they're just going to waste it. So yeah, I'm kind of done after this. Oh, I've been done, but I'm really done now. I mean, what's the point? Unless they sell the team, there's no point.
sell the team. Well, who's not selling the team is the Penguins, and they are in the NHL draft. They picked Benjamin Kindle, a forward from Calgary, and then they traded a pick to Philadelphia, and later they picked some guy named Bill Zonin and Will Horcroft. Sure, these guys are going to be all Hall of Famers. Sure, why not? I have no idea. This is the NHL draft. It's much like the baseball draft. It's a big crapshoot. Very rarely do you get a player like Mario. The last time the Penguins had 3 picks in the first round was when they drafted Mario, Doug Bodger, and Roger Bellinger. Doug Bodger was kind of okay. I mean, he was pretty mediocre. Roger Bellinger, never heard of it. Never heard of the dude. No clue, Tim. Any clue? I don't know.
Well, so I watched the draft. It was the Penguins they need centers
Yeah.
because their top 2 centers are both more than 38 years old. So they need centers, and the problem was there was just this huge run on centers in the top 10. So they were looking at that Martone kid. He was like that big power forward. Philadelphia took him. Hagens from Boston College, that McQueen. There were these centers that you thought maybe would slip to them at 11, and none of them did. And so when their pick came up, Dubas takes this Ben Kindle, who was projected to not go until like 22nd or 23rd. And the other thing is Ben Kindle's kind of small. He's like 5'10", 5'11". And one of the things that they kept saying over and over again is the Penguins are easy to play against. These teams like Florida who are miserable to play against. That's who the Penguins want to be. They need size, they need durability. They always have guys getting hurt. And he drafts like a 5'10", smaller guy. But if you look at Ben Kindle's highlights, he's a really good goal scorer. He's just a good talent. So hopefully it'll pan out. I mean, they did get that kid they got later in the round, who you mentioned, that
Zonin.
Horcroft.
Oh,
Horcroft. He's big. He's like 6'5". So, and he's a center. So they did get a big center later in the round. And that's Zonin. He's another one. He's a winger. But like you said, Steve, it's a bit of a crapshoot. All I'll say is that they're doing the right things. You don't know how it's going to pan out, but they're doing the right thing. They're rebuilding the team. They're stocking draft picks. They're stocking young players. Maybe these aren't the right young players, but hopefully they are, and they're at least doing the right thing.
Hey, I don't know why the draft here is such a crapshoot. In football, it isn't, but in hockey and baseball, like, the draft really is a crapshoot.
It's because you're drafting 18-year-olds. That's why.
Yeah.
Imagine
they're drafting people out of high school. Yeah.
Right. Think about all the 4-star recruits.
Yeah, that never, and then the guys that are 1 stars or no stars end up being Hall of Famers.
Yeah, exactly. Or number 1 draft picks. Like, just think of the time from high school to college
Yeah.
how much.
Well, what I love is the recruiting services now. They go back and revise their star picks. Isn't that a cute trick? Like, oh, I was never wrong. I had him as a fourth. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. It's like, wow. What a joke.
But
like
that is why it's a crapshoot, because you're just drafting such young kids.
There is a growth spurt in development between 18 and 21 that people don't realize. So
well, hopefully Ben Kindle has a growth spurt. He doesn't.
He's now 6'6". Oh my gosh, what happened? So here's something. It's kind of off topic. It's not necessarily Pittsburgh sports, but it's hockey related. Florida won the cup, right? Like you mentioned, and they're tough to play with. They have a pretty good goalie, Bobrovsky. This means that Edmonton, who was their opponent, lost, and McKinnon lost again, right? Or not McKinnon. McDavid, yeah. The other Mick guy. So do you realize who was the last team, and I know the answer to this question, to win a Stanley Cup from Canada, the last Canadian team?
Yeah, it was the Canadians
in 93 with Patrick Waugh. Yeah. So it's been 32 years. Why is that? I mean, is it because there's only 7 teams out of 32 that are Canadian? Is it the Canadian dollar's fault because it's only worth it's like monopoly money? I mean, I have no idea why. I mean, I guess when the overwhelming number of teams is American, maybe that's the problem. I don't know. Maybe they should, when they did in the bubble, maybe they should just have a Canadian conference and then have them play the American conference for the cup every year.
Yeah, but it's only, like you said, it's only a handful of teams, so that would be kind of.
Well, I mean, they could still do
unfair.
Yeah, and it's an uneven number of Canadian teams too. Yeah. It's not even 8.
I don't think it's a problem that needs to be solved. Honestly,
maybe they should have the Canadian teams plus Vancouver. Or not Vancouver.
Vancouver is a Canadian team.
I meant Seattle.
Oh, Seattle, yeah.
I'm saying dumb stuff today. I'm not having it. Sorry. Seattle. I meant Seattle.
Yeah. I don't think it's a problem that needs to be solved. Just like the income tax thing. That's the other argument, that 5 out of the last 6 Stanley Cup winners
are no income tax states.
Yeah. The Florida and Nevada. But how many Stanley Cups did the Florida teams win in the 20 years before that? That's just, I feel like in sports we invent problems that don't exist. You're right. It's just happenstance that Canadian teams haven't won it. I mean,
well, I think too, it doesn't help that there's only 7 of them.
Yeah, but they've had
it's not chances. Even half. Yeah. Edmonton's had 2 chances to break that streak.
Yeah, Edmonton was in a Game 7 last year. Vancouver was in a Game 7 against Boston back in 2011.
And then Edmonton was in another final years ago, weren't they?
Yeah, against Carolina. Yeah. Calgary was in a Game 7 against Tampa back in 2000. I think that was 2004. So it's you literally had 3 or 4 Game 7s, one game.
Yeah.
Where the Canadian team, if they just win that one game, they would have won the cup. So it's just the way it has gone. It's not a problem that needs to be solved.
Well, I don't know. Hey, whatever. Maybe it'll be another 30 years before they win a cup. Oh, well.
I do want to point out the fact that Bobrovsky has now won 2 cups. He's won 2 Vezinas. He's an all-time great, and the Flyers gave up on him.
And the Penguins smoke him, but he's weird. He'll be really good or really bad. There's no in between with him. You never know which Bobrovsky's showing up. Even in the final series, he would give up goals, and then all of a sudden, he's back on track. He's not giving up any goals. So
yeah, he's had his ups and downs. But my goodness, they just the fact that the Flyers just were well, you stink. You're never going to amount to anything. Yeah. I just can't help but love that.
Well, speaking of another guy, the Philadelphia sports team gave up on, that would be TJ McConnell from Chartiers Valley. Yay! Now, unfortunately, he plays for the Pacers now, and it was boy. The NBA had to love this matchup. The Indiana Pacers versus the Oklahoma City. What are they? Thunder or whatever. They were very Thunder, ish. But the Thunder won, and I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's a healthy thing for the NBA. Like, don't you want to spread, like the NFL figured this out? You want to spread your, league throughout the whole, United States, not just New York and LA and Boston. So maybe that'll, sow some seeds in Oklahoma City and Indiana, and they'll get better, attendance, and eventually the TV ratings will come. You want people to watch because they like the sport, not because, the fans of the team, because the team fans are going to watch no matter what. Pacer fans and, Oklahoma City fans are going to watch. It's the problem is when those people tune out when the Lakers are playing the Knicks, even though you have a bigger audience, you're actually not having a bigger audience,
Yeah, another problem that doesn't need to be solved.
But anyway, TJ McConnell, 4-year deal, $45 million deal with the Pacers. He plays well off the bench. He's a fifth-year guy. He's had a great 10-year career in the NBA. Remember he played for Duquesne, Tim, your alma mater.
Yeah.
And then he went to Arizona. Just all around good guy, good story. Fun for that. They're like the first basketball, the McConnells. His father ran Chartiers Valley forever. His mother coached at Pitt and was a very good basketball player. I think his sister played in WNBA, but then she got cut. But just great for the McConnells, and celebrate them, and good for them. Basketball in Pittsburgh isn't that big of a deal, but hey, maybe the McConnells will make it a big deal.
Yeah, I was rooting for him. I was rooting for the Pacers, just for him, and also like that's a franchise. I know Oklahoma City has never won it either, but they haven't really been around as long. Like the Indiana Pacers have been around decades and decades. I always root for that. Now those fans in those markets where they've never seen their team win. I've kind of,
and it was sad. Reggie Miller like hugged them after the Game 7 they lost, and yeah.
But congrats to the Thunder. Was that the old Seattle Supersonics, Steve? Is that who that is?
I'm not sure if it's them or the Memphis Grizzlies. I can never remember which is which. Okay. Seattle moved to either Memphis or Oklahoma, so I can't. If it's Oklahoma, that's just another great Seattle.
I think the Grizzlies were Vancouver. Or there was also the Charlotte Hornets moved somewhere
to New Orleans. They moved them, so maybe it is Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma is the Seattle Supersonics. Okay. Really sucks for Seattle, because that was a shame, because their team sold out. They had a good fan ticket, like good ticket base, and then they wouldn't build them a stadium, and the guy just moved the team. So I can't imagine Oklahoma City. It doesn't seem like that big of a metro area, but hey, they got a professional team championship, so good for them, Oklahoma City. Can't see I wonder where their parade will be, down the middle of a road with tumbleweeds blowing through or whatever. I don't know, but good for them. Hey,
way to level the whole city of Oklahoma City.
Yeah. But you know what? You know what they have that Pittsburgh doesn't? An NBA championship.
They do. So, Steve, important question. Do you still have your Sean Kemp jersey?
No, I don't think so. If I did it, I would have worn it for this segment.
Yeah, for your Sean Kemp Seattle Supersonics jersey.
Who ended up being like a really terrible person, but hey, that's another episode. Well, thanks for tuning in to this current events episode. It's kind of a slow time in sports, so that's why we're covering NBA talk. Oof. But anyway, to check us out on Facebook and Spotify and all your other providers of our podcast network, and we'll talk to you next time.